Please, Barbara, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction, and hello to everyone. I will start with this presentation today on energy efficiency networks in industry. And first, I will shortly lead you through the presentation, what we will do during the next 40 minutes. First of all, we will shortly present the EU project Odyssey Muir, which is the background for this webinar, which is part of this project. Then we will describe the concept of energy efficiency networks and how these networks address barriers to energy efficiency. Then I will give the floor to my colleague, Wolfgang Eichhammer, who will present a case study for Germany, where we have this kind of policy instrument for several years now. He will present you also some results of this project. Then in the end, I will try again to show some general success factors of these networks, which could also be important for many other countries. And in the end, I will make some conclusions and a quick outlook. First of all, starting with the EU project Odyssey Muir. The webinar is organized within this framework, and on the website of this project you can also find a policy brief where the contents of this webinar is described with some more details. The project now is a Horizon 2020 project financed by the European Commission and covers more than 30 countries in Europe, that is all European member states, Norway, Serbia, and Switzerland. And the heart of the project are two databases. First of all, the Odyssey database on energy efficiency indicators, which is managed by Enerdata, one of the technical coordinators of this project. And the second one, and that is a database Muir on energy efficiency policies, where you can also find a lot of information of this concept of energy efficiency networks, but also on all other energy efficiency policies in these countries, in all sectors, also for buildings, industry, and the transport sector. And all information on this project and also on this webinar will also be available on the website. Well, first of all, I will start with a short background to show how the concept of energy efficiency networks fits into the discussion on potentials for energy efficiency, barriers to energy efficiency, and the general policy framework for energy efficiency, which is also shown in the Muir database. The energy efficiency networks, which we will talk about here, usually address the cost-effective energy efficiency potentials in industry, and these are potentials which are cost-effective from a social perspective, but many of them also cost-effective from an individual perspective, and they look at many technologies, especially cross-cutting technologies, electric motors, lighting, and so on, which are behind these potentials. And we knew for many years that there are a lot of barriers also in companies which hinder the exploitation of these potentials, even if they would be cost-effective from an individual perspective. And in order to remove these barriers, we have a lot of energy efficiency policies which also address industry. That is, we usually have a lot of regulation, legislative measures. We have fiscal and financial measures. We have in Europe, in the US, and many other countries some new market-based instruments, as for example energy efficiency obligations or auction systems. But nevertheless, these energy efficiency networks are also a relatively new type of instruments, which is mainly looks at information on energy efficiency, but has a specific concept which makes them, as we think, stronger than the usual the usual policies in this field of information. And I think this is also shown by the international spread of this concept, which seems to be convincing already now in several countries. It started very early, but only in Switzerland in the late 1980s. And around 2000, Germany looked at this instrument, and it was established in Germany and afterwards in several other countries inside and outside Europe. We now have this instrument in several countries, as for example Italy, France, UK, in Sweden, Austria, and outside Europe in the US, Canada, China, and Japan, for example. And it's not easy to characterize these networks in the different countries because the forms are relatively different with regard to the institutional structure, to the geographical scope, that is, are they local, regional, or for the whole country, for example, the number and size of companies, and also the services offered. These networks have some characteristics in common, and that's first of all a uniform goal, namely to increase energy efficiency in a company substantially, and they usually also have some common characteristics, and the main characteristics are the exchange of experience and information in moderated meetings, and a lot of consultation with energy efficiency experts. How this works in practice we will show later for the German case. Before we come to the German case, I would go a little deeper to the barriers to energy efficiency in companies and how energy efficiency networks are able to remove at least some of these barriers. And the main barrier they look at are the information and knowledge gaps on EE potentials, which are available in many companies. And here energy efficiency networks try to raise awareness for these potentials, which I showed before, for example, by regular meetings and in general by increasing the transparency about energy use by different monitoring tools. But they also look at barriers like lack of capital by providing information about private and public financing on energy efficiency investment, and what is very important, especially for smaller and medium-sized companies, that usually energy efficiency investment has not the highest priority in these companies, and therefore one of the most important goal of these networks is to make energy efficiency a higher investment priority in companies. And how this works in practice will now be shown by my colleague, Wolfgang Eichhammer, describing the case study for Germany, where we have learning networks for energy efficiency for now almost 15 years.
Yes, hello together also from my side, Wolfgang Eichhammer here, and thank you very much for participating in this seminar here, in this webinar here. I would like now to present to you some more detailed results about the learning networks in Germany in particular over the past years. This shows you again a bit the history which Barbara has just mentioned from the early starts in Switzerland here, and then the German evolution, which, sorry, I'm just finding the error, yes. Here when it started in Germany was one network here, and a really broader stage was reached here when 30 pilot networks were developed in Germany, on one hand with some support from the Ministry of Environment, and on the other hand also by a local energy supplier, ENBW, who recognized that these networks could be also an interesting contribution to the own business. When I say supported by the Ministry of the Environment, it means that the network activities itself were not supported by the ministry. It was rather that the companies who participated in the networks, typically 10 to 15 companies in one network, they were participating with annual fees that covered the running of the network. So the support by the ministry was essentially covering the initial phase, which I will explain a bit more in detail, when the network was composed, and also it was covering a bit the analytical efforts to evaluate the impacts of the networks, to get figures, how much energy was saved, and so on. And then these networks, as said, intended broader. We were looking how these networks can better be adapted to smaller companies, because the networks imply some administrative effort for the companies, and the smaller the companies, the more this effort counts, and we have to take this into account. Barbara will later on then show you how this moves on, and especially also the newer developments in the most recent climate program of Germany, because this was a very successful phase, the pilot phase in Germany. Now, this shows you how the network is composed. I already said 10 to 15 participating companies. Typically, we have energy costs of the companies in the range of 500,000 euro annually, or roughly speaking, something like $600,000 if you think more in dollar per year. The reason to have this threshold is that it is some effort for the companies to participate, and the participation should be covered by the energy savings that are occurring in the networks. And this is the reason when these energy costs are too low, then they may finally not be paying off, or I need, as said, to develop lighter structures for smaller industries. You see here the major components of the network, and a very important part in the network are naturally the companies themselves, the 10 to 15, but these companies need to come together at first. They don't gather on themselves, so there is a network coordinator, someone who talks to the different companies and tries to animate them to come together in such a network, and he may then be the network carrier once the network is established. On the other hand, we have the daily business in the network, and this is done by a moderator who initiates meetings, for example, in the different companies, who also engages possibly external advice to bring more information to the companies. And for all this, there are well-documented structures which are running under the name LEEN Learning Energy Efficiency Networks Standard Obligation, which is compliant to ISO 50001 standards on energy management. And this structure here is very important for the success of the network. Barbara mentioned some networks running abroad, and in these networks frequently there is not a similar strict standard how the network is to be run. So there are modifications of this type of structure, especially in some other countries. The LEEN concept is based on three phases. There is the initiation phase, as already said, where the network needs to be brought together. There is a presentation of the concept to companies. The companies at the end settle on a network agreement, and this agreement will contain also a target which the company network is going to achieve. So it's on a voluntary basis, and typically the target is set for a period of time to 3 to 4 years. There is a first phase of energy review where profitable energy saving targets are established, where site inspections occur, where an initial saving report is written, and this information is also gathered in a central database, so it is possible to exploit later on within the one network, but also across the networks, information on the savings. Finally, this is the main phase of network operation that covers most of the 3 to 4 years period, with site inspections, with lectures on an efficiency topic, with especially presentation of the realized measures in the companies, and general exchange of experience. And in our view, the fact that these measures are presented mutually by the companies to each other is a very important psychological element that helps, for example, also convincing the top management of a company to be very active in these networks, because none of the companies would really like to present as if they haven't done much work with respect to energy savings. And finally, results, as said, are also monitored in terms of measures that have been undertaken and savings they have achieved. Now this is a view on the pilot phase in Germany, the 30 networks I mentioned, which were roughly running in the period of time between 2008 to 2013, roughly speaking, so 4 or 5 years period. You see here the map of Germany here. And well, some of you are in very far countries. Just to give you an idea of the dimensions, this is about 800 to 900 kilometers, and this is about maybe 400, 500 kilometers here. So these are the dimensions of Germany, relatively small countries compared to some others. And each dot here represents a network, and typically these networks are regional ones in order to allow the companies to reach possibly meetings or to visit the other companies within a reasonable time frame. In total, these energy networks represent costs of 1 billion euro per year, energy consumption of 15 terawatt hours per year, and CO2 emissions of 5 million tons per year. We will see a bit more later on the sectoral coverage, but a large part, 3/4, are from the industry sector, and the remaining part covers, for example, the health sector, hospitals, utilities, trade, and other somewhat smaller sectors. And as said, a good half have energy costs that are in the range between 500,000 and 4 million euro per year. Some have also higher energy costs. While here a more detailed look on the sectoral coverage in the LEEN project, you see here the split of the manufacturing industries, and for example, you see here some focus here on food products or machinery equipment, rubber, plastics products, fabricated metals, and so on. Some are not classified in here, is also a larger category. And then here you have the service sector activities, the health sector, wholesale and retail trade, or electricity, gas, steam, and other service activities. So you see it's a broad spread on different types of industrial and service sector, the more energy-intensive service sector activities. Now, how is the split of activities that is undertaken here? First of all, you see on the left-hand side how the technologies are split across the different type of activities like ventilation, lighting, compressed air, a larger focus on electrical applications, process cooling, process heat, space heating. So these are mainly what we call as cross-cutting technologies or horizontal technologies. That is, they are common across the different branches or the different companies that are participating. And this is a major element also in the composition of the networks. Typically, these are not companies working in the same field together, because those may be competitors, and then they have it's difficult for them to exchange even on energy savings. On the other hand, cross-cutting technologies are common to a larger number of companies in different fields, and then focusing on those one is much more easy, and they can really give advice to each other. They can learn from each other. They can give recommendations who has helped them, where they have made good experience, and so on. Here you see also a view on the recommendations that were given and the amounts that were involved on these recommendations. You see a larger number of recommendations here in the field below 5,000 euro, from 5 to 50,000, but also non-negligible recommendations with investments in the range well beyond 50,000 euro, for example. Now is an example of cost-saving potentials found in company networks. Here you see, for example, the type of auxiliary equipment that was considered with some technical characterization. This is the potential, and typically you see that the potential was in the range of 20 to more than 30% savings were possible across these different types of applications. And also, very interestingly, the internal rate of return is quite interesting here, around 20% for most of these applications. Naturally, this is a function of the electricity prices in a country, and if electricity prices are considerably lower or subsidized, this can have an impact on the internal rate of return. Germany is a country with relatively high electricity prices in the world. Now, here a view on the savings achieved in the LEEN project and the spread here in terms of annual savings in megawatt hours. And you see that quite a large saving is achieved through energy carrier change. This is the column here on the right-hand side. But also, interestingly, process heat is another focus, ventilation, space heating, and then across all of the other saving technologies, quite important savings are typically achieved here. This is a typical range of investment in companies, and you see here that the 75 quartile is in the range of a little bit below €500,000, and the 90% quartile is up to around 1 million euro. And again, you see the spread of the investments across the different types of cross-cutting technologies. Here, the right-hand side again with the energy carrier changes. Now, what are results that have been achieved? And in fact, these results have been very encouraging. These are the results from the 30 pilot networks, and the 30 pilot networks comprise in total around between 400 and 500 companies. These networks have been running, as said, typically for periods of time of 4 years. And you see here the spread of the savings that have been achieved by the different companies, and you see that the average here of the savings is in the range of around 2% per year. So after 4 years, companies have been saving 8% or even more. There have been networks saving maybe 12-13% in a frame of 3 to 4 years. This must be compared with the autonomous progress in the companies, and the autonomous progress is about 1% per year. So the networks have been leading to a doubling of the saving rate as compared to the autonomous progress in the different networks and companies. Now, this is a summary of the overall success of the LEEN Pilot Project, and from here on I will hand over once again to Barbara. She will summarize the success here and then have a look at the policy level, what impacts had that on the policy choices of the German government. Thank you for your attention for the moment.
Okay, I will now go on with a short summary of the overall success of these pilot projects, and these are all results from the evaluation of the project, and the results are very encouraging, I think, also for the German government to go more for this instrument. And it was for each company on average in these networks, and we had 30 networks with around with more than 300 companies there. These companies reached a yearly reduction in energy costs of almost 200,000 euro, CO2 reduction of 2.4% per year, and an energy efficiency increase of 2.1% per year, which is around a doubling of the usually energy efficiency increase in companies in Germany. The companies in the networks invested in around 10 new economic energy efficiency measures during the time they were in the network, and many of them were also economic from individual perspectives, and the rate of return on average was even higher with 30% than in the table shown before, because there are a lot of very economic measures here in the field of cross-cutting technologies, so that these companies could reach this high internal rate of return, which is much more than alternative investments usually have. And also there was a survey among the participants, and they seem to be very content with these networks because there were very good rates in this survey on the when the companies were asked how the advice gathered in the network activities was implemented in the company. Almost everyone said yes, it was implemented. And most of the companies see a very high benefit in these network activities. And these results also convinced the German government to increase this concept. The German government, in the end of 2014, the German government initiated a national action plan on energy efficiency with several new policies in Germany to increase energy efficiency, and the so-called 500 energy efficiency networks initiative was one of the most important measures, which means that the energy efficiency networks are we will now in future have a great number of these networks. We already have an additional of around 100 or 150 at the moment. And this is a voluntary instrument which is based on an agreement between industrial associations and the government. We also have several other types of energy efficiency networks in Germany, networks for smaller companies, for example, a few networks for branches, because the usual networks include companies from different branches which are not competing, but in some cases, for example, hotels and restaurants, it can be interesting to have a network within the same branch, so that also some branch-specific process technologies can be addressed. We also have in some industries, for example, the chemical industry, some cooperation internal networks between different production sites, and also for municipalities, there is a new concept of energy efficiency networks for cities, which we, however, could not describe in detail here in this presentation. But looking at the success of these LEEN networks, the early example from Switzerland and from some other countries which already have some experience in this concept, we can draw some conclusions on general success factors for these energy efficiency networks to reach these very positive results I showed. It's first of all the clear network structure, which includes audit services and all this information in one clear structure. It's also the tools and standardized guidelines which lower transaction costs. It's, for example, the LEEN standard, but you can also use other standards which may not be so ambitious as the LEEN standard, but also are important and for this kind of networks. It's important to have a clear time frame for the networks. Usually it's 3 to 4 years in the pilot project. It's also important to provide training for all actors in these networks, and what is also important for future networks, especially, for example, for the 500 networks in Germany, to develop good sustainable business models for these networks so that they are not dependent on government support. As Wolfgang described, the pilot project was a little supported by the government. The 500 networks now do not get any support. Therefore, this kind of business model is very important, but when looking at the cost savings for energy costs which such a network can reach, I think it will be possible to develop this kind of model. Well, let me make some conclusions before we come to the question and answer session. We think that this concept was very successful in improving energy efficiency in companies, which is shown by the evaluation results, and this also means that new initiatives can build on the success of LEEN and the example from Switzerland. It was so successful that not only the German government but many other countries were already convinced and established these concepts in their country. What is also important to add, we mainly showed the reductions in energy consumption and CO2 emissions and the reductions in energy costs which could be achieved by these networks. But we should not forget that with these reductions we also can make use of other benefits of energy efficiency, which is also discussed as the so-called multiple benefits. You make a great contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. Your energy efficiency networks are good instruments to further develop markets for energy services and also to reduce the dependence on energy imports, for example. And they also have some impact on the economy, on GDP, and additional employment. Therefore, we really think that this is a successful instrument which could be a good policy instrument to contribute also to long-term climate targets. Well, thank you for your attention. You will find all this information later also on the Odyssey Muir website, together with many other information, not only on this concept, but general on energy efficiency policies in Europe. Now ask your questions or also contact one of us. Thank you very much.